Three. Hi everyone, Dean here from Enrolmy, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to the Breakfast Club podcast. As many of you know, I'm always talking with people from the UK, Ireland, and the world who've had an incredible impact on the lives of children, young people, and families. I'm keen to understand what drives them and the journey they have travelled to become the people they are today. In this episode, I chat with Lawrence about his fascinating journey, from his childhood and school experiences to his career beginnings and the lessons he's learned along the way. Lawrence opens up about his transition into recruitment, where he and his team serve the childcare industry, the challenges and rewards of becoming a business owner, and his approach to building a thriving enterprise. We also dive into his aspirations for the future and the exciting growth opportunities on the horizon. So it's a great conversation about resilience, ambition, and joining random trips to watch rugby in Paris. That was a good one. So grab your morning beverage, sit back, and enjoy this engaging chat with Lawrence. Let's go. Right, hey everyone, welcome to the Breakfast Club podcast, even though it's lunchtime today. I'm here with Lawrence Everest. How you going, Lawrence?
I'm very well, thank you, very well.
Have you had lunch yet?
Not quite, I had half a sandwich, then you arrived downstairs, so I came straight down.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I had breakfast about half an hour ago.
Excellent.
So it's kind of quasi-breakfast club, and it consisted of a Nero's coffee.
Nice.
And what do you call the cinnamon?
Cinnamon swirl.
Cinnamon swirl, but it's got raisins in it. There's like a panna raisin.
Pain à raisin.
Yeah, raisin.
Do you like a good old pain à raisin myself?
Yeah. So
well, there's so much sugar in it, I've tried to not have as many anymore.
Yes, true. That would have to be the second one I've had in the last 3 weeks.
Excellent.
So
not too bad. Not too bad.
I have a number of friends involved in the fitness industry, as you do.
Absolutely.
So they are what's the word? They're pretty fastidious about the things that they eat. Yeah. I could safely say that for most of them, the pain à raisin
would be extreme.
Yeah, it's not on the list.
I looked at having one yesterday, and I second guessed myself, and I didn't. I was quite proud of myself.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's power. It's true power.
It is.
Yeah,
I'm trying.
I knew a guy, and he would. This is a funny way for us to start, but he would purposefully not eat something that he really wanted just to prove that he could.
Exactly.
You know,
it's about control. It's about discipline.
Yeah.
You know, that's the crucial thing. You know.
Yeah.
You can easily get away with that, but you know.
Yeah. And then you see, you're at the supermarket, and there's that variety of good things that you look at, and you go, I could have them any time, but I choose not to have them.
Yeah. Yes.
So
I wish I was strong all the time.
Yeah. No, I think there's a level of what's the word? Realism.
Yeah,
there's a balance there.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree with that. 100%.
On this. Anyway, so it's past breakfast, it's lunchtime, but we're here. And of course, the Breakfast Club podcast is all about just chatting to people who are involved in the childcare and children's activities industry and learning about their background and how they got there. And, all of us got here in different ways.
Absolutely.
And so I'm looking forward to hearing Lawrence's journey into what he does with Love Childcare Recruitment. To get that right?
100%.
100%, that's good. And because Lawrence and the team play a very important role in making sure that we can fill all the different jobs and the vacancies that are in the industry that we need to have to get everything going.
I like how you gave me credit for that. There's a lot more people do a lot more work than I do.
Yeah, so someone's got to be a figurehead.
I'm not even sure I'm moving that anymore.
Okay.
But carry on.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm also, well, it was great to be on Lawrence's podcast a little while ago, and so we'll put that in the links below so you can have a look at that, because that was me answering a few questions, and this time I'm going to be asking Lawrence a question, so that's going to be a bit of fun. So, of course, what we do is we always start with, where did you start? Where did you grow up? What was
home
when you were young?
We're going way back.
We're going right to the start. Yeah.
I grew up in a lovely part of Surrey called Byfleet. Byfleet's near Woking, Guildford kind of way.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, lovely area. I did another podcast a couple of years ago, and I kind of phrased it in this way. I massively lucked out. I won the parent lottery, I think, and I had the most wonderful upbringing, which I'm incredibly grateful for.
Yeah, awesome.
Rural stability.
Yeah. Rural area? Or was that like
fairly, quite villagey.
Yeah, villagey. Yeah.
I wasn't quite conscious at the time, but I now live in Croydon, which isn't villagey. I'm much more conscious.
More trainee Croydon? Is it? A few trains going through?
There's a few. There's a few trains. And I was very, very fortunate to have the upbringing I had and have the role models that I had. Yeah. My dad was and retired a couple of years ago. He was a window cleaner his entire life, and he worked incredibly hard. Yeah. He worked so hard in growing a business, and yet was incredibly present in both mine and my sister's lives.
That's pretty awesome.
And I grew up in an area where some of my friends parents maybe weren't quite as present.
Yep.
And I think that really, really helped shape me, the type of parent I then wanted to be. And I like to think that I've become that long term. My mum worked incredibly hard. My mum was the most honest, kind, helpful person you ever come across in your life. And I hope that I've learned the values from both of those two people that's helped to shape me.
Yep.
I was okay at school, average.
Yep. Enjoyed it though? Did you enjoy it?
Not
everyone has to enjoy school.
I think I went under the radar at school. I think that was a conscious thing. I was lucky that I was good at sport and I was a good runner, but I wasn't cool enough to be a sports person. So I kind of floated in this kind of middle category that all the cool kids knew me and I was okay. But I wasn't cool enough to hang around with them. But I got to hang around with more the geeks, and I was more of a geek. So I was kind of lucky. But I went on the surface. I went to university, loved university, that was the making of me.
Which university did you go to?
I went to a university called Buckinghamshire. It's had a few different names over the years. It's quite a small one, which really resonated with me. I was lucky enough to maybe have the opportunity to a slightly bigger one, but I loved the small campus atmosphere of it. And I'm so pleased I went there because I made lots of good connections there. Some of those people I was at university with are now friends and colleagues and clients in some capacity, some instances in the sector, and I made some wonderful friends, and I grew up a lot in that time.
How did you find, like, growing up, coming from I suppose a smaller community, and then taking those steps up? Because I mean, imagine high school is a bit bigger again, and then university just a little bit bigger. It wasn't like going to Greenwich in the city or something huge. It was kind of just taking those steps as you went through.
But I didn't go to a Loughborough or a Bristol or a Durham. I went to Bucks, and Bucks was tiny. We had 5 football teams, but everyone knew each other, and we would walk through High Wycombe where the campus was, and know loads of people. It was still quite small.
Cool. I love how you defined the size on the number of football teams.
Exactly.
That's
5 often. Well, you go to some universities, they have 5 campus teams. University teams. Then you have that kind of the big university ones that people strive to go into. We just had 5. That was it.
That's it.
I knew them all.
That's a good way of defining it, especially today, of course, because England are in the final.
They are. What a game last night.
I did. I actually I'm a little bit worse for wear on the podcast this morning because part of I'm trying to engage fully with the culture.
Nice.
My accent's not quite there yet, but it's getting there.
It's getting there.
I have a friend who can transition between Irish, Scottish, and English, kind of Southern English, in one sentence.
Wow.
And it's like next level. And I'm like, just do that again.
My wife is phenomenal at accents. She can just model them immediately. She's very, very talented.
The only accent that I can do really well is like a Swedish parody accent.
Wow.
So apologies to all the Swedes listening.
You don't know?
Well, no, definitely not, because my kids will just mock me relentlessly, and it's like the most embarrassing thing I could possibly do in front of my kids.
Let's move on.
So, and I don't want to offend the nation, which is, I understand now. So anyway, so excited about England and the final and things like that. So I really love talking about school because often the people in the industry that are listening, we're working with school age kids, and
Absolutely.
And what school was like, and like you say, I think school, for me, I was a little bit under the radar as well. I was kind of smart, but I didn't know it, but because I was good at sport, and you made a really interesting point that often at school, you kind of mould between social groups.
100%. I think it happens. I think it really does. It was certainly true for me. I was, like I said, I did cross country, I did basketball, I did football. I played for most of the teams, but I was never in that circle. I never felt quite comfortable in that circle. I went to a huge school. It was a 10-form entry. 30 kids per class, 10 of them. It was a big old school, and it's quite easy to go under the radar, and I think I was quite comfortable being that guy. I had a wonderful group of friends, and I think it's really important. I did have a really solid group of friends, and I think that's really important for childhood to have that. Even more so these days. That's a whole different conversation maybe we'll get to later on. But I think a lot that's lost now. I'm very lucky. My oldest, who's 16, has got a group of 4 friends, and they are just a wonderful example of what friendship should be. They've got each other's backs, they hang out, they look after each other, and they're just really, really great. That's just how friendship should be, right?
And modelling that, and you saw it in your own life, and then inspiring it in your children's life, and I think it's one of the things that when I'm working with kids, when I've been in the past, obviously I kind of more work with people working with kids now. That you kind of, your senses are out for that kid that's just a bit on the outside and hasn't really kind of formed those deep friendships. And I think a challenge which you kind of alluded to before is like, what does that look like for kids these days? Where, you know, like my son's got friends across the world because they're on his Fortnite team and they made it to the finals in the Southern Hemisphere, you know, and so that's it's a challenge because it never replaces grabbing a coffee or heading to the movies with people that you know you're in the presence of, you know.
I think the crucial element's play, isn't it? Have you read The Anxious Generation yet?
No, but I have to buy it and have to read it.
I don't know if it's because you said it because of the same sort of reason. I kept seeing and hearing references to it. It seemed more than an accident. I had to buy it, and I've since obviously bought it, and I've read. I'm back about 10-15 pages left. It is seismic in terms of how you start to perceive the young generation and what we've done. And I won't spoil it completely for you, but how we overprotect in real life and how much we drastically underprotect our children in a virtual world. It's phenomenal. All based on science, all based on sociological factors and experience. It's just it's huge, and it's a wonderful read.
Yeah, no, well, I'll put it in the links because I think that it is something really important, and I think you know the challenges of both school teachers and those working out in the industry, whether it's wraparound care or holiday camps and things like that, they kind of end up with the brunt end of that sometimes. You know, and it's really funny because I remember in a previous life, I was a school teacher, and you know, the kids would come into school and they'd be like amazing in the classroom, and then the parent would come in and say, "Oh, Johnny's such a rotten kid at home." I'm like, "Why? He's a different kid." Yeah. What are you talking about? That's not what I see. And then you get the opposite end of the spectrum where there's rotten kids in the class, and the parents have no idea, you know, because it's an interesting world.
I loved it when you spoke on our podcast about the teaching side of things. I thought that really shone a light on you and your makeup.
Yeah. I do. Like a lot of people have asked me, you know, did I regret those years, which I think is what I said, but I don't at all because. One, I had to get organised, and I was previously a disorganised man, and after teaching, I was an organised man, which is a good thing. It was a good period. So you studied at university. What was next after that? So what did you do?
Well, actually, probably an interesting thing I missed out. Just quite interesting. I only went to university because I completely changed track of what I wanted to do. All through my childhood, I wanted to be a fireman.
Yep.
All through, I just wanted to be a fireman.
That's awesome.
And I only did A-levels because. I couldn't be a fireman until I was 18. And then during that time, I suddenly realised I didn't want to be a fireman anymore.
So, did you have, was it the fires or was it the action? What was it?
If I'm honest, it was about the opportunity of earnings. I felt I couldn't end up earning the sort of money I'd want to support a family by doing. I'm sure you can. Obviously, you can still make a living and have a wonderful life by doing that. But it starts my perception of building that. Twist just changed as I got older, and so I then decided I was going to go to university, and I ultimately decided to follow my passion. My passion was sport and leisure and activity. I'd always played lots of sport, so I did leisure management, and sports studies. Loved university, as I said earlier. So after university, I got a job. I was living in Woking. I got a job in Walthamstow as a duty manager, earning £16,000 a year.
Is that a train ride?
It was a long drive.
Okay.
It was either a 100-mile round trip, or about an 80-mile round trip, depends on which way the ran M25 that went. I varied it just because I needed to vary it. And I started working for a company called Solutions Health and Fitness. It was a wonderful organisation. I was led by some really lovely people I learned a lot from. There's a lady called Jo Orchard, who's my first ever GM. She was phenomenal. I think she's a teacher now, weirdly. I learned a lot from that process. I was a duty manager, basically. I did some sales. I opened the club. I closed it. I was getting. I'd drive across, and I early would start at 5:30. I'd get in at kind of 4, so I could do an hour and a half of work before I even opened the club. That work ethic, that drive, that energy, which I think is always with people, was with me at that particular point, taught by my parents. I worked incredibly hard. And you're supposed to finish at 3, and I often wouldn't leave until 5, hit all the traffic in 25, coming back to the other side of London. It was crazy. But I loved it. It taught me so much, and I was really threw myself into it. And then they opened a second club in Croydon. That's where the Croydon story begins. So I went over there as assistant manager there, ended up becoming GM. Of that site at quite a young age, but I look back at it now, it was a glorified operations manager, a duty manager really, and I don't realise how bad I was in my job until I was made redundant, and the owner took control, which is fair enough, and I'm forever thankful for that experience because it forced me to really confront that I wasn't fulfilling my capability.
Yeah.
I joined a company called Sporter, which was one of the biggest. It's almost like David Lloyd at the time.
Yes.
They were bought by Virgin Active. And I had 4 or 5 years there. Wonderful. Loved it. Vast majority. Last year or so wasn't so great. But I learned so much. My sales drive, the attention to detail, the leading of teams, learning what leadership really is. And I learned from some truly phenomenal people. And that's what I really take away from a Sporter. There was a lady called Catherine Firma, who's now operations director at Gym Group, Russell Ormwood, who's one of the most senior people in David Lloyd now. Those 2 people particularly, but there were a lot more. I feel bad leaving more people out.
It's hard to name them all.
Those 2 people particularly, they know who they are. They know the emphasis had on me. And Catherine's been on my podcast and she's phenomenal. Russ hasn't been on yet, so Russ,
Russ, come on, let's go.
He keeps saying he's going to, and doesn't quite. But I think that's when I really understood growth and how to learn, how to have difficult conversations with people, how to tell people the truth, and how you grow up. I'll stop talking as I'm conscious I'm taking over. So I'll be
no, that's cool. No, I like it. And you made a really interesting point earlier on where you were leading the club, and then the manager kind of stepped in, kind of scenario. And I think that when you're a capable person, you get put into situations that you're sinking or swimming, and you're just keeping above water, and you're making things happen. But it's a learning experience. I mean, I remember a really defining thing in my life was I was a youth leader early on, and I was tasked with running an event. So it's like, we'll go canoeing on this river, and my I was like 18. Organisational skills were non-existent. I was about to take like 50 kids to jump into canoes and just play around in the river. The river was way faster than I expected, and the fact that no catastrophe, terrible disasters happened was a miracle. And I just remember after that going, someone put me in that position, not realizing I didn't have the full skill set to make
Absolutely.
it happen.
I think sometimes the older you get, the more aware you get of situations like that. I look back at that time, and Joe, who's the GM, Joe, for the guy that owned the business, was perfect. She had been a GM before. She'd run a Holmes Place club. She was incredibly accomplished. And she had me to be the doer around her. So when she was running the club, Alex didn't have, the gentleman didn't have to get involved too much. But as soon as Joe left to go travelling, and I got the opportunity to step up, I didn't have the capability to be. I didn't have that. I was a doer. I wasn't able to step back and be the manager that he needed me to be. And so I wasn't good enough. I'm it hurt at the time. But I look back at that now as what an amazing gift that was.
It is, and I think in hindsight, all of us that have had those kind of situations, I referenced my water one, but there's been plenty of other ones as well that it hurts at the time, but you have to, if you're honest with yourself, you step back from it, don't you? And you go, what's next?
Absolutely.
The self-awareness is really interesting. And it's often something when I'm talking with people, and we're talking about a situation with a third party. One of my first questions is, are they self-aware? Do they actually understand their role or what's happened in the situation, their contribution, either positive or negative, to a situation? Because sometimes you're talking to people and they're totally unaware that this thing happened.
I don't remember saying this with reference to my podcast, but the podcast, the amount of people have come on and sat there, and they will cite continuously almost every single person to a T. It's that consciousness of when you get feedback of respecting that feedback, good or bad, respecting that feedback and doing something about it, and realising it's delivered for a reason. Sometimes it comes from maybe a good influence in your life, sometimes it comes from a bad. Either way you learn to take it on. Don't be humble enough to listen to what that advice is.
Because the ego immediately wants to shut it down. There's one guy I follow, Jarko from Extreme Ownership, and he had this thing that he disagreed with initially. He kind of agrees with it, kind of doesn't, but he talks about it. But he said, take the default position that you're in the wrong. The issue is you, not the other person. And if you take the default position that you're wrong, then it makes you look way deeper at all the things. It's like, why isn't the staff member performing? Is it they're wrong or I'm wrong? Because maybe I'm wrong because I haven't communicated it well enough, And so it changes the mindset of those discussions.
Actually, I think it's two more things for human.
Go for it.
I think it's about being in sync as well. If something's gone wrong within the workplace, often it's because you're not quite in sync. You have, as you say, you haven't been clear enough that person, not in sync with what you're actually asking them to do. And also, I think from a stoicism point of view, you're always in control of your reaction to a situation. You don't have to be. You don't always have to take offence or react. You control what you're doing. If it's, you don't have to choose to be angry about something,
or
disappointed, or to be hurt. Park your ego. Step back and go, okay, I don't have to be pissed off about that.
Do we need to put a special help pack for English football fans? On the same kind of concepts, possibly.
Control how reaction. Sunday could be interesting.
Man, I haven't felt energy in a pub like the quarterfinal where they scored, where the guy saved the first goal, and I was like, I'm in an English pub, a little quaint English pub, maybe about 100 people in the pub, and it was just packed, and just I was like mental.
There's a lot of pent up. You talk about the penalty shootout, right?
There's
a lot of pent-up anger in the UK about penalty shootouts.
yes.
We are historically horrendous at it. So we seem to be getting better.
So you've won 2 games on penalty shootouts now, and it's pretty good.
Yeah. We're about 3 out of the last 4 tournaments we've had penalty shootouts we won. Obviously, the one we lost was the Euros final, which is quite a big one not to win, but it happens.
Well, it's time to win this
Exactly.
which is cool. So obviously went through the employment experiences and all that kind of stuff, and then had the opportunity to kick into Love Recruitment and Love Childcare Recruitment and things.
Yeah,
so how did that kick in?
I was working for another recruiter, and it was great. I was working for another recruitment company, and it was a wonderful place to be. However, I've always had it in me. I wanted to run my own business, and I wanted to run a business that was related to my values and my business partner's values. And we really wanted. Not that it was different. It was just you want to do it yourself, right? You wanted to reflect you and your psyche and your values, and so we decided to go out on our own, and we launched Love Recruitment. Love Recruitment was 9.5 years ago. We did our 6 months non-compete. And then we launched. We had a Jerry Maguire moment of phoning everybody. And then it was just a wonderful experience, and you learn so much in that first year. And I look back on our first year. Our goal was very, very simple, was to still be in business in a year's time. If we're still in business in a year's time, that was such a mark of resounding, not just a bit of success, resounding success. So it meant people were wanting to work with us, and we were making placements because there was no kind of big investment. We didn't go out. It was us. That was it. It was just us.
You had to work the streets and away you went.
It was our savings. It was our money. It was, everything was us. If we were still in business, that meant something pretty serious was happening. And we were, and it grew really, really quickly. And there's a lot of learning from mistakes, but it was a lot of trust in our gut early on. It was a lot of what is the type of business we wanted to be. So even then, I talk a lot at the moment about, I think one of the reasons we've been lucky enough to be quite successful is we always try and think as long term as possible. We focus on the day, we focus on the talking, the communication, the being in sync. We try to make it about where we're going. What's the long term? So if you're always true to your long term values, the present looks after itself. So we weren't conscious of that. That's now. Then we didn't say that. We're naive. But
you intuitively knew it, but so you were enacting it, but it wasn't like a definitive.
It wasn't. We just followed up. We just followed what we thought was right, and we trusted that would take us in the direction we wanted to be. We learned a lot that wasn't quite right early. There were elements of what we did where we were almost becoming something that we weren't truly within ourselves. So we became it's about fun, it's about values, it's about not being a recruitment company, having that sales culture. It's okay. We went too far away from what made us successful originally. What made us successful originally was there is accountability, there's detail. We have to deliver on the product. We have to be really strong. And I think early on we perhaps weren't quite. First year was amazing. Second year was phenomenal. Third year was phenomenal, but we were making less money. Something's gone wrong. What's not quite right? It's because we weren't tight enough on the finance, the accountancy, the accountability, etc. So we evolved quite significantly as a business, and that's where we probably had our first paid moment as an ownership team, where we had to have some quite clear conversation, honestly, with ourselves that we were quite running the business that was going to be sustainable for us long term. We would eventually run out of money because it was too reliant on me. That led to me stepping away. Abby took over as MD. I started overseas, which then, a few twists and turns, I'm skipping out of the way, led to childcare. So childcare came about because we felt that we were really park the ego. It's no park the ego. We're good at what we do. Where we're good at what we do because we know the sector so well, or where we're good at what we do because we're good at what we do. So it's like, where can we test ourselves in another sector to see if our process, structure, and mentality works in another sector? And we were approached by a former client who then worked in adult care.
Yeah.
He's like, I think you could do really well in our sector. So we're like, okay, well, let's test it. Let's
Yeah.
fire some bullets, let's test it.
Yeah.
Let's create a minimum viable product. And we did. We started recruiting in adult care.
Yeah.
And that became something, this is working.
Yeah.
And that led to me rekindling, obviously worked with Craig Jones for a long time,
Yeah.
obviously a mutual friend.
Yeah.
And he's like, we can do childcare again. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, let's do that again. So we started that again. But that very, very quickly led to where the business really, truly wanted to be and where it felt we resonated with our style was childcare.
Yeah.
So we very quickly moved away from the adult care side of things, led by Tom. Tom's the MD of that business.
Yeah.
Phenomenal what he does.
Yeah.
He positioned us very quickly that way. I was against it originally.
Yeah.
To be honest. You very kindly said I led the business. Tom leads that business.
Yeah.
He is phenomenal. He put us in a position where let's focus on the child and childcare. Let's focus on nurseries. Let's focus on wraparound care. Let's focus on sports. That's where I think we can add huge amounts of value, where there's a real need for our type of service, where we put the client and the candidate's honesty, authenticity, delivery and service at the centre of everything. And it really resonates with that sector, and it does.
Yeah.
And so we started to work a lot more in childcare. And we now have three quite distinct lanes that we do. So the lanes being wraparound care, which obviously is a huge opportunity at the moment with the support the government lending to it with the fund.
Yeah.
We do a lot of work with sports, which is kind of work similar to that, but slightly outside of that now, and nurseries.
Yeah. And I suppose you're interested that you said that you were kind of, you had robust discussions, and maybe you weren't the greatest fan of different directions at different times. How did you as a team navigate through those? Because interestingly, in everyone that I talk to, at some stage in their business career, some of us more than others, robust discussions are held.
Absolutely.
And managing a robust discussion in a that maintains relationship is a skill.
It is.
And from personal experience, there's definitely been situations where afterwards people have come to me and said, look, Dean, we've lost a bit of goodwill because of the way you addressed that situation, and I had to really eat some humble pie and say, I probably went a bit far on that side of things.
Absolutely.
And stuff. So how do you guys navigate it at that time when you...
I wish I could tell you a silver bullet statement.
And
I don't, because I think it's a combination of about 10 things. Let's just focus on a couple of them. I think the first thing is about trust. And I think trust goes hand in hand then with time and patience and honesty. I think we were able to navigate those times because we, as a leadership team, as my two business partners and I, firstly we complement each other really, really well. Where we're the people side of things is really important. I'll come back to people thing in a minute. But we trust each other. We've earned that credibility and trust. Everything whenever it's difficult, it comes from a good place. And that hasn't come from time. That comes from maturity.
It's
that
true.
comes from growing.
And character.
The type of character you need to have that type of conversation. We didn't have that ability, even though we'd worked with each other for 5 years. And we love each other, we're all best friends. We wouldn't have been able to do that in the same way and then receive that in the same way early on. We've now grown up more. We've been in those situations. We've been in the final minutes of a game and scored an overhead kick to win it. Those times put the team together. Those troubling times brought us together. So you earn the right to have that conversation. Then the last thing I'll probably touch on is more things, but I'll take the whole podcast itself, just talk about that one topic. But people. It's such an overused cliche. It's all about people. It is, but it isn't, in my opinion. It's all about the right people. I could not run Love Recruitment or Love Childcare Recruitment without the two people I've mentioned in their entirety. And we now have a new generation coming through. So those people, we couldn't do what we do without having the right characters who respect us and we respect them. And I've got an amazing mentor called Eve who helps me out sometimes. And she challenged me recently on this point where you have a culture of honesty and I know people can. How do you get to that point? And the only way you can do it, in my opinion, is time and it's patience and it's trust and it's delivering consistently, and that compounds. People originally go, you can say we're a family, say whatever you want. No, you're not. People won't tell you the truth for a period of time. And if people learn to respect you, know you're telling the truth, know you're not going to voice an opinion and voice dissension and get fired, then you start to earn their trust and you can truly have a culture.
And there's no shortcut to that, is there? Some people might trust quicker than others, but to build that community of trust in that situation, time and experience and belief in one another, and I suppose it's not that you might trust one person sooner than you trust the other person. So before you can have that wider conversation, a trust conversation with 5 people, maybe there's only 2 people, and so the time is the bit that gets it to the 5, you know.
Absolutely.
And that side of things. And so it's cool. So what's next? So the next thing is, Love Childcare Recruitment's rocking on, doing some great stuff. You're working with some great clients.
Yeah.
And of course you might be listening and going, okay, we need a bit of recruitment. So we'll put all the links in the description and bits and pieces here. And on the Enroll My website, we've also got a section. Well, I don't know if it's up yet, but we've designed a section that will point to Love Childcare Recruitment. But what's next? What's next on the cards?
From an overall point of view, or just childcare?
Childcare and then the overall.
Fine. From a childcare point of view, there's a huge amount of growth for us still to go through.
Yep.
Tom and his team are doing a phenomenal level of work in all the 3 lanes I mentioned, and there's a huge amount of growth for us still to do in all those areas. Yep. I think there's a real opportunity before the election and now since the election to really focus on young person and children.
Yep.
There seemed to be a gravitation towards it with the wraparound care funding, everything could happen anyway.
Yep.
Since obviously Labour have won the election, the noise seems to be there's an equal, if not more, of an appetite to really drive through a focus on that sector, and that's going to help everybody within it. So for us, I think it's a huge opportunity for us to grow. I think it will present other opportunities, maybe digitally, for us to support the sector in other ways.
Yes.
So a lot of what childcare do is, 97% of what we do is A to B recruitment.
Yep.
You need a team there, you need a regional manager there, you need an MD there.
Yep.
We can find that person for you, and you pay us a fee to do that.
Yep.
I think there's a huge opportunity for us to serve the sector in a much more digital way.
Yep.
You want to advertise 100 jobs? Okay,
Yep.
we can help you. We can do that. We can provide a platform for you to help you do that.
Yep.
That's the next step.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's exciting.
It's really
and it's probably about 20,000 people currently listening to this podcast that'll be excited about that.
100%.
Yeah, maybe 100,000, but we'll just keep it at 20.
It's coming. You can register or connect on the site in the meantime.
And for the wider business?
Very similar from a fitness point of view. That product's already off and running. The guys are already servicing that already, and I think we can look at a wider scope of maybe globally as well. That's certainly something. But at the moment, that's the long term.
Yeah.
But we can only do that if we execute now and presently to the best degree we possibly can, the great ideas we currently have. So it's about focusing on the present and treating the present as a present. Let's make sure we deliver that really well and do our jobs from a service and delivery point of view the best we possibly can.
Because you're building from a place of strength there. I've done consulting in the franchise industries, and it's really funny. People would come and say, "Oh, look, I want a franchise," and I'm like, "Well, why?" And it said, "Oh, because I need to make more money." I was like, "Is that because your original business isn't doing well enough? Because if you're trying to cover over the cracks of your original business by franchising, it's going to be a giant disaster. You got to have that sense of core strength first, and then grow from that point." And so that's exciting to hear that. So one day we might have round 2 of this podcast in New York somewhere, maybe,
nice.
or Sydney.
Sydney. It's about time we had the Australia business for a while. That was a wonderful period of time. There's a few less places in Sydney that we could hang out.
Absolutely. And it'll be a bit of a shorter trip for me than for you.
Long way for me. Or maybe New Zealand.
New Zealand, absolutely. Queenstown.
I've still never been.
It was always have to make that happen when you come down one time. And we're doing actually a thing at the moment on my door-to-door, front door to office door journey. 36 hours. 8,000 miles or whatever it is, kind of thing, from my home to my office door in London.
That's a long way.
So that's always.
I always phrase our podcast as a commute length podcast. I think you might have quite a few episodes.
I need like a super long, like Jocko Willett, 4.5 hour one.
Some days like Andrew Huberman's as well.
But the thing is that they're always really good. But like you say, ours is a commute podcast, getting to know some people in the industry in this situation. And for me, I think it's a conversational about, the experiences of people, how they got to where they are, and what you'll find, just like from Lawrence's experiences, everyone started somewhere, and everyone had different paths their life went on that led them to this situation, and exploring those and hearing those kind of can help you, hopefully, if you're listening, that wherever you are in the journey. One of the biggest things I ever heard was that was massively impacting for me is don't judge your chapter 1 by someone else's chapter 10. And so when you hear podcasts and stories of people who are at chapter 7 or chapter 8 or whatever of their life journey, and you're just starting, that's why this podcast is really important, because we want to hear those bits back at the start so you can relate to that on the journey kind of thing. Patience.
Patience.
I had a great one yesterday in a conversation. It was like, you you can't make a massive difference. Not you can't, but it's hard to make a massive difference in a large company in a year. But you can make a huge difference in 3 years.
Absolutely. Like Tony Robbins famously said, isn't he? People drastically overestimate what they can achieve in a year, and hugely underestimate what they can achieve in 10.
Yeah. That's true. And 10 years is a long time, and you're nearly there. From Enroll My's perspective, we're coming up 8, 9, I think now. So I think. So our 10 years will be pretty close too, so it's going to be good. Awesome. Well, thanks, Lawrence. Thanks for sharing some stories. Check out the links below for all the books and all the other bits and pieces we discussed, and links to Love Childcare and recruitment and the wider recruitment business as well. So thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
More than welcome.
Cool. Cheers. Thanks, everyone.